Larijani is dead. This is the most significant news we've heard from the military operations inside Iran after Khamenei's killing in the joint military operations by United States and Israel. But who's left? I'm going to go over a list of the most significant remaining people of the Islamic Republic and why are they significant and what does it mean for the Islamic Republic if they're taken out next. I'm going to put them in three different categories of people who are symbolically important and devastating to the Islamic Republic if they are killed. And then more importantly, people who are operationally involved in keeping the Islamic Republic alive. And then lastly, I want to also mention some people who are the last hope for the Islamic Republic to stay alive, even though they're less relevant, but they would be the last hope for the Islamic Republic to do a rebranding and survive, which, given how things are going, is not something that they seem to be wanting to do right now. But before I go through the list of the most important remaining people, who they are, what their position is, how important they are, let's talk about the two very significant people that were just taken out, Ali Larijani and Gholamreza Soleimani. Larijani was the secretary of the Supreme National Security Council. That's his title. But remember, within the Islamic Republic, titles don't paint a complete picture. Your level of influence comes from the leverage that you have over different people and the level of influence that you have in different parts of the Islamic Republic. And that's political influence, military influence, and financial influence. After the killing of Ali Khamenei, Larijani was the most important person within the Islamic Republic. And no, it was not Mujtaba Khamenei. Mujtaba Khamenei is right now obviously not as influential as his father was, Ali Khamenei, but not as influential as Ali Larijani was either. He's mostly a puppet right now. So Ali Larijani was the main person that was keeping the Islamic Republic together. And keeping the Islamic Republic together is exactly how I would describe it. Because a lot of people don't understand how fragmented the Islamic Republic is. It's a Frankenstein monster that was being held together by the duct tape called Ali Khamenei. There are many different parts of the Islamic Republic, and there's division not just between the so-called reformers and the hardliners, but within the hardliners as well. There was the power vacuum that came after the 12-day war, but even earlier after the divisions caused by Iranian women not wearing the hijab and many other things that I'm not going to go into. The competition over the power vacuum that they knew would come up when Ali Khamenei dies. There's so much division between the many different segments of, even within IRGC, we have different camps that were always competing with each other and they had different positions and they were backstabbing each other all the time. However, Ali Khamenei was the glue that held everything together. Every time there was misalignment and different positionings, it only required Ali Khamenei to come out and say something, and then everybody would be forced to get in line. He was the main force to create some appearance of unity, even if there was not real unity. So with Ali Khamenei dying, the only person that could have done that to some degree, I mean, obviously not as effectively as him, because it's really hard to transfer that sense of holiness and loyalty to anyone else. We saw that transfer being partial when it went from Khomeini to Khamenei, but for Khamenei to someone else is going to be, to anyone else will have been even more difficult to do. And Mujtaba is somebody who we only have one video of him ever speaking, which was about him canceling his religious classes. That's the only video that we have of him speaking. As somebody who hasn't been present, nobody has seen him, he hasn't done speeches. He was not at all in a position to be able to have that effect on people. At least, for example, when Khamenei became the supreme leader after Khomeini, at least he was the president of the Islamic Republic for a couple of years. So he was present, people knew him. But even then, he wasn't able to have as much loyalty as Khomeini had. So Mujtaba Khamenei doesn't have any of that at all. And the fact that the IRGC, not the Assembly of Experts, they had nothing to do with picking Mujtaba Khamenei. When IRGC picked Mujtaba Khamenei as the supreme leader, this was a plan years in making, because IRGC basically did a coup d'etat They were always planning to transfer the power from Beit Rahbari, which is the office of the supreme leadership, completely to IRGC. And right now, the IRGC is in charge, and it's not Mujtaba. However, the Islamic Republic needed that glue that basically made sure that all these segments, all of these fragments of the Islamic Republic don't go in opposing directions and basically cause absolute chaos and division within the Islamic Republic. They needed somebody to do that, and Ali Larijani was the person to do that. And now he's dead. The reason why he was the person to do that is because he was, unlike so many other people, like Ghalibaf. Ghalibaf, for example, has his own people, his own crew. Within the IRGC, there's so many different segments. Everybody has their own tribe and group. But Ali Larijani was the person that managed to have some form of a good relationship, or at least influence, with everybody, all the different segments. So if there was somebody that could have some of a bringing together of the Islamic Republic in one direction, it was Ali Larijani. Especially right now, if we need somebody to strategically coordinate the ongoing response to United States and Israel's in this current war, nobody else would be able to coordinate all different, not just militarily, but politically, being able to coordinate everybody. It was him to be able to do that. But beyond that, the regime's ability to negotiate with Americans has been also taken out, because without him, there's nobody that could clearly come and say that I'm representing the Islamic Republic. So even if you're looking for a full surrender, I don't see who else other than Ali Larijani at this point could have communicated that full surrender. Ghalibaf might be able to do that, but we'll get to him. And also basically shaping the messaging and the narrative, the official narratives that is coming out of the Islamic Republic, getting on the same page and basically making sure that everybody is aligned. That is going to be very difficult now without Ali Larijani. But here's the thing. There was a second person that was taken out at the same time that many foreigners are not paying attention to. However, for the Iranian people, this guy was very significant. And that's the head of the basij, Gholamreza Soleimani, the commander of all basij militia forces, the thugs that are responsible for intimidating and suppressing and killing and torturing people. Imagine if thugs or gangs were employed by a regime as a way to intimidate and kill civilians, as a way to suppress them. All in the name of being some form of a Islamic morality police. That's what the Basiji is. And that's why Basijis are the most hated group by the Iranian people. And this guy was the commander of that, which also means that he was responsible for the tens of thousands of Iranians that were killed in early January. It happened under his direct command. This man has a long history of absolute cruelty in Iran. He's the architect of the regime's street-level domestic terror and has a history of directing the Basij to violently suppress any form of uprisings. His elimination has basically taken out the primary enforcer of public suppression. This massively will embolden the protesters, and it will severely limit the regime's ability to physically control the streets. But who's left? Because after the 12-day war, and then also on the day that they killed Ali Khamenei and so many other of the leaders of IRGC, a lot of people keep asking me, who do we have left? Let me first talk about people who are not that very influential right now, but taking them out is symbolically very important and will cause a lot of demoralization and more defection from the regime. And on top of that list is Mujtaba Khamenei. I'm going to put Mujtaba Khamenei in the symbolic list because I don't believe he is actually very influential right now at all. He's a puppet of the IRGC. It doesn't mean that killing him doesn't have any influence, because killing the third supreme leader will obviously have a huge impact on morale, the remaining pro-regime people, and it will cause the idea that, yeah, everything is falling apart and we need to defect faster and we need to run away and more people will defect. So even though I don't think he's part of the decision-making process, symbolically, he's the most significant person to kill. Eje'i is also very important symbolically. He's the Chief Justice, the head of the judiciary. I don't think whatever he has an influence on right now is going to make that much of an influence when it comes to keeping the Islamic Republic alive. It is true that he has turned the judiciary into a war machine, And he's the one who provides a legal justification for mass execution of people. However, that is not as important as the other people that I'm going to mention later. But because he's one of the heads of the three branches of the government, killing him will further demonstrate that this Islamic Republic is about to be toppled. So symbolically, he's going to be important. Not as important as Mujtaba, obviously, but still important. And third on the list of the people who are not that influential, but symbolically taking them out will send a message to the regime forces or the remaining supporters, is the most irrelevant, the least influential person, the president of the Islamic Republic, Pezeshkian. Saying that this person has little influence is actually an understatement. It would be better to say he has close to zero influence right now. However, because he's on paper, he's the president, him being taken out has it will have some symbolic influence. Much less than Mujtaba and Eje'i, but still. Again, remember, within the Islamic Republic, your title is not as important as the leverage and the connections and the financial, political, and the military leverage that you have. That's the main difference maker regarding how influential or powerful you are, not the title that you have. That's why Mujtaba, even though he's technically the supreme leader, it doesn't really matter. He's not very influential. Now let's go to the people who are influential, and they're not just symbolic. And technically, these people that I'm going to mention to you right now are the Islamic Republic. So we have Radan, we have Sarlashkar Abdollahi, we have Nejat, and we have Vahidi here on this list. These are the four people I want to talk about. Let's talk about Radan first, because now that Gholamreza Soleimani is dead, Radan is the number one person when it comes to suppressing the Iranian people in the streets and trying to defeat the protesters. He is right now the main architect of domestic suppression. His role has always been something similar to Gholamreza Soleimani when it comes to suppressing the people, but from a different branch of the government. He's the commander-in-chief of Faraja, which some people refer to it as the police, but it's mostly an anti-protest, anti-opposition unit that has been specifically designed to stop the Iranian people from being able to challenge the regime. And he's the head of that. Eliminating him will shatter the internal security apparatus. Riot control forces will likely fracture, and this would give a huge upper hand to the protesters. With the head of the basij now gone, the suppressing the protests is basically now his burden. This is the guy that just recently announced that his forces have their hands on the triggers and they will treat the protesters like enemy soldiers, Israeli soldiers, meaning that they will shoot to kill any and all protesters. Killing him will not only cause fragmentation, but also it will demoralize the regime forces, but it will also be a huge morale boost to the Iranian people, because a lot of Iranian people, when you talk about somebody being in charge of suppressing, the face of Radan will come into their mind. That's the person that people think of in Iran when you ask them to name the head of suppressing forces. He's actually more famous among Iranians than Gholamreza Soleimani. So that's Radan. Let's now go to Sarlashkar Ali Abdollahi. Remember, the list that I'm giving you right now are the people who are not just symbolic. When you say who's the Islamic Republic, these are the people. These are the people that are the most influential and they're actively involved in managing the Islamic Republic. It's the IRGC that is basically almost the same thing as the Islamic Republic right now, not part of the Islamic Republic, the Islamic Republic. And so the three people that I'm going to mention right now are the most influential and the key commanders within the IRGC. So let's go with Sarlashkar Ali Abdollahi, which is the head of Khatam al-Anbiya, one of the most important parts of the IRGC and one of the most economically influential part of the IRGC as well. But not only that, he's the highest operational commander coordinating between the IRGC and the Artesh, the regular army, when it comes to all the military operations that the Islamic Republic is doing right now. His death would paralyze the military chain of command. This would lead to isolated, uncoordinated actions by the by the military forces remaining of the Islamic Republic, which will significantly weaken what the Islamic Republic is able to do. The next person is Hossein Nejat. He's in charge of Sarallah, which is part of the IRGC that is responsible for protecting Tehran from falling. He basically holds the keys to the capital. He's explicitly tasked with preventing Tehran from falling in an uprising. The IRGC has created an entire organization with that task, and this guy is the head of it, because the fall of Tehran into the hands of the people is the very moment that we could say the Islamic Republic has fallen. That's when you can announce that the revolution has been successful. And that's why this guy, Ansarullah, exists. If he's eliminated, the physical defense of Tehran is compromised. And the regime's grip on the ministries and also the broadcasting centers will be compromised. The moment that Iran will get the news that the capital has fallen into the hands of the protesters on state TV, that's when everybody from all corners of Iran will know that it's over and that we have won. And then we have Ahmad Vahidi, the head of the IRGC, the newly appointed head of IRGC. Guess what happened to the last one? Obviously, as the head of the IRGC, he is the one in charge of trying to hold the Islamic Republic's different military groups together. Eliminating right now, after the two other recent heads of IRGC that were killed as well, will completely shatter the IRGC's top command structure. This could cause the IRGC to splinter into localized, uncoordinated factions, which would severely accelerate the regime's downfall. You thought I forgot Ghalibaf? I didn't forget Ghalibaf. Ghalibaf's official position is the head of the parliament, speaker of the parliament, head of the legislative branch. But remember, I told you within the Islamic Republic, the official titles you have doesn't necessarily communicate what is your actual influence. Ghalibaf's position as the head of the parliament or majlis is not as important right now. Even if Ghalibaf was not the head of the parliament, not the head of the majlis right now, he would still be a very influential and powerful person within the Islamic Republic. And with Larijani's death, the person that could fill his role would be Ghalibaf. Not as effective as Larijani because he had his own camp, he had his own people. He wasn't as completely connected to different segments of the Islamic Republic as Larijani was, but he has his own very powerful group and people who are loyal to him and with a lot of political, military, and financial leverage. And he was also part of the IRGC. So he has many connections within the IRGC. Depending on how things go in the next few days, I would consider him to be the main guy people would look at for the political leader of the Islamic Republic with Larijani's death. But I don't know if he wants to come out of his hole anymore, given Larijani was killed because he came out of his hole for the Quds gathering. That's how they managed to track him back to his bunker. And Ghalibaf, more wisely, was absent. And that might be why he's still alive. So I don't know how effective he could be as the main political leader of the Islamic Republic if he's terrified to show his face. But taking him out would kill the last remaining person I could think of that could negotiate on behalf of the Islamic Republic as somebody who could at least act like he's in charge. Larijani being killed, the person that could take his place was Ghalibaf, and Gholamreza, Soleimani being killed, the next person that would be most relevant to his position would be Radan. So now let's look at three other names that are not at all influential at all right now, and they're not even symbolic. However, to us Iranian people, they're very important, but there is little hope for the Israelis or the Americans to target them, given how much they have been sidelined after the Lion and Sun uprising of the Iranian people and the early January massacre by the Islamic Republic. I'll tell you why they're not as important to the Americans and Israelis, but why they're important to the Iranian people. These people are Hassan Rouhani, Mohammad Khatami, and Hassan Khomeini. These are the so-called reformer moderate mullahs who I personally would love to see them eliminated, even though right now at least they have absolutely zero influence. But if the Islamic Republic at some point wanted to surrender, and this is a big if because the way that things are moving forward, the Islamic Republic doesn't seem to be signaling at all that they're in a mood for surrender, which is good from the perspective of us Iranians, because we don't want a weaker version of the Islamic Republic. We want the Islamic Republic gone. So we hope that these people continue to resist until they're all ended. But if they wanted to survive by bending the knee, one thing they could do is, after Mujtaba's elimination, they might want to make one of these people the supreme leader as a way to signal to the world and to the United States that they're doing a rebranding of the Islamic Republic and they're not going to be harmful to the world anymore. We Iranian people know that these so-called reformers are actually even more dangerous than the hardliners. They're more cruel, they're more evil, but they're also better at playing politics and better at giving an image of being moderates to the rest of the world. And many Iranian people hate the reformers more than the hardliners, given that it's these so-called moderate reformers that have managed to keep the Islamic Republic alive for the past 47 years. And some of the most cruel and brutal things to the Iranian people has been done under their leadership. In fact, every time the Islamic Republic has done the most violence on the Iranian people, the government was under one of these so-called reformers. As of right now, these people have completely been sidelined, even though Mohammad Khatami and Hassan Khomeini defended the Islamic Republic's massacre on the Iranian people to show that they're still loyal to the Islamic Republic, but they still have been completely sidelined. And Rouhani hasn't been heard of for a very long time, which shows that the Islamic Republic is keeping him completely silent. It's really good that the supporters of the hardliners are too stupid to understand how important somebody like Hassan Rouhani is for their survival. And among these three people, Hassan Rouhani is the most important one. And the years of Ali Khamenei using them as a way to shift the blame on them instead of himself whenever he needed them has made the supporters of the hardliners hate them so much that without Ali Khamenei holding them back, the hardliners are filled with so much hatred of these reformers that they don't understand that Ali Khamenei was basically using these people very effectively. And if they understood the game that was being played, they wouldn't sideline them now and actually use them right now very effectively. But the amount of hatred they have for these so-called reformers, luckily for us, means that they're not going to use them as a white flag that they could be waving at the Americans. Even though it seems like the remainder of the Islamic Republic is not going to be using these people, however, we Iranian people would feel a lot safer if these people were somehow eliminated so that we could be sure that the Islamic Republic has no chance of rebranding and trying to fool the world into thinking that they're now going to behave and leave us Iranian people stuck with another 5 decades of the Islamic Republic. So there you go. That's my list. Let me know what you think about my list. And let me know if this was helpful. Guys, the comments that you leave saying that this is helpful, I've noticed it gives me a lot of energy and motivation to do more of these videos. So those are very appreciated. Thank you for that. Anyways, my name is Armin Navabi. I'm Israel Chai. Long live America. Javid Shah. Payande Iran.